Sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenya Revolutionary for another session. This will be a very quick, brief one that I want to actually make here. Now, the topic of the day is Ruto's implementing his plan for 2027. What do I mean when I say Ruto's implementing his plan for 2027? This is his plan that he's putting in place right now as we speak, implementing it in order for him to have victory in 2027 elections. As you know, the general perception in Kenya is that Ruto is going to be one term, just to borrow the term by those people who claim one term. Let me just say that the general perception is that Ruto might not and will not win the election come 2027. He knows he's very unpopular. Nobody likes him. Everything has failed. Corruption is rampant. You name it, okay? Extrajudicial killings, all the unconstitutional moves that he makes, tribalism, and so forth, so forth. You know the laundry list, okay? You can go down it. But here is what he's doing to help him win 2027, okay? And it's very simple things. We can see it happening. We can hear reports about the news that's happening in Kenya. So we know that he's actually doing that. So before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you 3 reasons. Before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time in this channel, my name is Kenya Revolutionary. I talk about Kenyan politics and world politics as it relates to Kenya. So if you like that kind of content, I'm your political nutritionist, dietitian. Come on, take your minute and hit that like button, subscribe, share, like, and do all the good stuff, okay? And if you've already done that already, go ahead and the first order of business, you know, it's to do what? Hit that like button, okay? Now, let's get to it. Now, I told you in my videos before, I always tell you that come 2027, Ruto is probably, if we get there, I am a big, huge advocate for a revolution taking place in Kenya and not to have an elections, because I've given my reasons why an election will not give us the president that we want. We will not give us any leader that is worth the name, that will actually bring real, meaningful change. We'll just have all these recycled yesteryear politicians that hop from one political party to the other, who are part of the corrupt political class. So we will not get any change, whether it's Matiangi, whether it's Gachagua, or whoever, okay? But here's the thing. This is what Ruto is going to do, because he has to pretend that he respects the Constitution, right? So what he's doing is this. He's telling you guys, hey, do not worry about 2027. Do not worry about revolution or anything else. He's trying to paint a picture to convince you that any means of taking him out besides the electoral process is unconstitutional, okay? Which is wrong, because like I've always said here for the umpteenth time, Article 1 of the Constitution gives the people the sovereign power to actually chart their way forward. So if the people come together and says that Ruto is fired, Ruto will have no reason, no way he can stay in power if the people speak up in volumes and say, we don't want Ruto. Ruto has to step down, and all the political class and the whole system, okay? But he knows that. That's why him, along with his minions, they are in a huge campaign right now, running around say, Ngojeni 2027. And you can see everyone, you know, everybody. That's why I say anyone who's running for presidency, who's running for president in 2027, is nothing but a member of this political class. He's part of the plan of Ruto's plan, okay? Because the plan is to tell people, don't worry about the extrajudicial killings that's happening. Don't worry about the corruption. Don't worry about all the atrocities that's happening. Just wait till 2027, where your voice will be heard in 2027, okay? Where you'll have a chance to vote for me or not, okay? So that's what they're telling. Meanwhile, we funga tu macho, kaa hapo, Ruto anakuambia ati anafanya kazi, continues with his plundering of wealth and all the stuff that he's doing, okay? That's what he's basically telling you. Don't complain, wait till 2027 when you have a chance to vote, okay? And some of us, like me and others, are saying, no. We do not have to wait till 27. We can remove you now by invoking Article 1. But here's the thing, though. So here it is. He has an IBC in place, okay, for 2027. That's one aspect of it. The referees have already been chosen, handpicked by Ruto and Raila. You already know the IBC in place. And by now, if you don't know that this IBC is compromised, you need to have a psychiatric evaluation if you still think this IBC is actually working on behalf of Kenyans. But anyway, let me help you understand something. In 2027, we'll know that it's a sham elections, but Ruto has no options but to go to these elections. He knows he's going to lose, but there are a couple of things that he's doing in order to guarantee him a win, a victory. Now, one of it, we already know, Oscar Sudi told us that, kama kura haijatoshea, watajaza, okay? Basically implying that they'll be rigging, okay? So that's number one. We already know that. But let me just give you a more nuanced take on this, what Ruto is actually planning, okay? So here's the thing. We are going to 2027, but leading up to 2027, Ruto has come up with a plan, okay? You saw him meet a bunch of members of Kiambu County, whatever the case is, leaders or whatever the case is, okay? Some people from Mount Kenya. Now, the general feeling, what people usually say that Central Province is the most populated section of this country. They are the biggest voting bloc. That's what people are saying. But, that can be refuted if we had, recent, what do you call it? Wakianza kuhesabu watu. What do they call it? I forgot what they call it. They count people and see how many people are, registered voters in Central Province and other province. But let's just go with what the general understanding that Central Province is the most populated province on Kenya, Mount Kenya, Mlima, okay, right? And that's where most of Ruto's support stemmed from last year. And a lot of political analysts are arguing that Ruto cannot win the 2027 elections without Murima, right? I'm just going with that. In my opinion, I can refute that, but I won't, take you down. I won't break it down for you so that you can see that you can actually win an election without Mount Kenya. But I just want to go with what we are being told and the general accepted narrative that you cannot win the elections without the Mount Kenya. And as you know, Mount Kenya votes, they are the ones who majority of them actually voted for Ruto in 2022. Now, come 2027, Ruto knows that he has lost majority of the support of Mount Kenya. Actually, Mount Kenya is the number one leading anti-Ruto sentiment. If you want to find people who are really anti-Ruto right now, go to Mount Kenya, Mlima, okay? Of course, Gachagua's shenanigans is playing a huge part in that. But that's not where my focus is on. But here's the tool that Ruto is using to actually get some votes and split the votes from Mount Kenya. He's using something called gerrymandering. Gerrymandering. Just Google, a simple Google search will explain to you what gerrymandering is. Basically, what it is this. You can see now, it's a coordinated plan by Raila and Ruto. You had Raila Odinga when he was speaking a few days or few weeks last week or something, when he came out and said that we need to, dissolve this whole 47 counties thing. It's unnecessary. It's too much. There's corruption. The devolution stuff needs to be reviewed. We need a constitutional change where we can only have like 7 regions, okay? Except of, we used to have 8 provinces. Now we went to 47. Now Raila wants to take us back to 7. But there was a reason why he was saying that, okay? Remember, these guys have been pushing for a constitutional change, and I've often told you and reminded you that the next step in the NADCO plan, which is basically BBI, which is basically Government of National Unity, which is basically which is basically, what was it called? Whatever. Never mind. Okay, so they want to change the constitution. Okay, Laban, I see you. Wake a like up, and I see you, brother. So what I was trying to say is this. Ruto and Raila have sat down and they want to take us to a referendum, okay? They want to take us to a referendum. And the reason why they want to take us to a referendum is they want to neutralize. That's not the main reason, but that's one of the main reasons, okay? They want to neutralize the Mount Kenya vote. Because again, the generally accepted narrative in Kenya is that Mount Kenya is rich in votes. They usually vote as a one block. They're rich in votes and they kind of determine who becomes the president, which is generally not true because if we break it down, I mean, Kibaki did not win 2007 and he had all the Mount Kenya votes. 2013, Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto did not win the elections, even though they had overwhelming votes from Mount Kenya. So it's a narrative that is generally accepted, but it's not true. But let's just go with it because what Ruto is trying to do, let me explain to you, okay? What Ruto is trying to do is to kind of disabuse you of this notion that Mount Kenya can will actually, let me correct myself. Sorry. Let me correct myself. Ruto's aim, here it is. Ruto's aim is to do this. He is trying to create a perception. I told you, when you're planning on rigging an election, you do not have to actually win. You have to only create a perception that you've won. I'll repeat that so you can understand where I'm going with this. Please follow me closely because I'm using a lot of words and I'm mixing myself up because the ideas are so much in my head and I don't know how to put them in one succinct verbiage or whatever the case is, okay? So listen to me. Ruto is very unpopular, okay? Let's just establish that. We know that. He's very unpopular. He knows that he will face defeat in 2027. Let's just establish that. He knows that. So what he wants to do is, since everyone is talking about Ruto cannot be re-elected if he doesn't have the Mount Kenya vote, because we have generally accepted this narrative that Mount Kenya gets to decide who becomes the winner of the elections in Kenya, which is not true, but we shall go with it. So Ruto's task here, okay, is not to win the election per se. Scientifically speaking, he might not win the election per se, but he is taking measures to create a perception that he won fairly and squarely. Karibu sana Gypsy Corner. You understand what I'm saying? I'll repeat again. If you are as unpopular as William Ruto is leading up to the 2027 general election, okay, you do not, especially if you are the head of state and you have all the instruments of power and you have the money that you want to use for your campaign, and you know that you're facing inevitable, victory, defeat is inevitable, okay? If you know this, you do not have to win scientifically. When I say scientifically, I mean something provable, something verifiable, something transparent, as the Constitution say our electoral process should be. It should be transparent, verifiable, and something that we can all see, transparent, okay? But Ruto knows that this will not be the case. So what he wants to do is to create the perception that he actually won. But scientifically, he will not win. So here is what he's doing. Now that he understands that majority of Kenyans buy into this narrative, which I said is not true, but we shall go with it because that was majority of Kenyans believe, that in order to win the elections, you have to quote the Mount Kenya votes. So what is he doing to counter that narrative? He is doing something called gerrymandering. Okay? What is gerrymandering? This is redistricting of these counties or these areas. okay, remember, IBC is responsible for the boundaries and whatever the what is it called, the whatever. They get to decide after every 12 years or so. They get to rewrite those boundaries, okay, of the counties and all the wards and all that stuff, okay. So what he's doing, him along with Raila Odinga and all this political class, okay, what they're doing in order to, neutralize the votes of Mount Kenya, ama kuzitenga, or to scatter the votes from Mount Kenya, he wants to redraw the boundaries of the counties. Am I making sense, guys? Am I making sense? Are you guys following me? Okay. Gypsy Con, I see you. Thank you so much. Nice seeing you, brother. My sister, brother, whatever you are. But anyway, so he wants to do the gerrymander. Now, gerrymandering, for those of you who don't know what gerrymandering is, redoing the districts in the US. It actually happened in Texas. If you guys are not following, or for those of you who don't follow US or follow US politics, there's a lady who, her name is something Crockett, okay? I think Jessica or whatever Crockett. I think she's a senator, U.S. senator, or whatever the case is, okay? And she's from Texas, and she was a Democrat, very problematic, very rude, and she was really talking smack about Trump and whatever administration. So what did the Republicans in Texas do? They voted, the senators and the whatever, the House in Texas. What they do? They voted to redo the district where this lady represents, okay? And when they did that, she lost her seat because the district that she was representing no longer existed. So she lost her seat as the representative or the senator, remember, senator of the U.S. Senate from Texas, okay? So that's the same thing. That's an example of this whole what gerrymandering is. It happens for a long time, and especially in the U.S. I mean, since they have the electoral votes thing, they always do the redistricting. Okay, they kind of change the districts. Okay, if the Democratic leadership is in a certain state, they will create or get rid of a section in order so that when it comes next election, they might have the majority of the seats. Therefore, the agenda can be passed. So what is Ruto doing? I hope I'm kind of clear there. I hope I'm clear. I'm trying to explain as best as I can. So what Ruto and Raila is doing is they're trying to pull the same trick. You've had them talk about the idea of merging Kiambu with Nairobi County. You understand? Kiambu and Nairobi County. Mnanielewa? Why are they doing that? Kiambu is considered part of the Mount Kenya, Murima, okay? Now, why do they want to do that? The reason why they want to do that is this. If you merge Kiambu and Nairobi, it is easy for the opposition-leaning voters, okay, to vote a candidate that is aligned with the opposition. Let me give you an example. ODM is the dominant party in Nairobi, okay? I gave you the example of how, Raila did his homework. He gave us a very insightful speech, how he came in Nairobi 1992, him along with Fred Gumo. They actually started, bringing people from, Western Kenya, whether it's Kisumu, Kakamega, whatever the case, okay? And they were building, they were kind of growing seeds, creating a voting basket in Nairobi, whether it's in, Kibera or whatever the case is, Langata, and it's, throughout the years, they made Nairobi to become a very strong lawyer and Luo political, and I'm talking about now tribal, ethnicized politics here, because that's how Kenya we vote anyway. But anyway, I'm just describing how they kind of made Nairobi become this lawyer and Luo dominated voters in Nairobi, okay? So what I'm trying to say is this: if you merge Kiambu, already, yes, yes, sure, yes, Gypsy. I'll read your comment in a minute. So what Ruto and Raila is doing is this: knowing that Nairobi is a heavily ODM or not compromise. It comprises of people from upcountry, namely Luos and lawyers. Now, I'm not saying that there's no Kikuyus and Kisii and Kalenjin and all these tribes, but as long as far as the voting blocks, okay, the hugest, the biggest voting blocks within Nairobi County is always the Luo blocks from Kibera, the lawyers from Ninio, where Tim Wanyonyi wanted to run was the Embakasi and what's the other place? I forgot. Whatever the case is, okay. Then you have the Kisii also there. You know, you see what I'm saying? It's a very cosmopolitan area. It's a mix-up. And Kiambu, to some extent, is kind of like Nairobi, but not to that extent, okay? Of course, Kiambu is heavily Kikuyu dominated county, all right? So now, if you merge these two to make it one county, right? If you merge these two to make it one county, what you are generally doing is this: you are absorbing the Kikuyu votes from Kiambu County, mixing it up with all these tribes in Nairobi, okay? And you can rig the vote and argue that, hey, listen, this new county, which is Nairobi plus Kiambu County, whatever the name they'll give it, Kia Nairobi, whatever county, okay? This new county is no longer dominated by Kikuyus, okay? It's a metropolitan area with all tribes mixed in. So you can't argue that it's basically a Kikuyu-dominated county because they are now one and people live there. There's people of different tribes, people from... You see what I'm saying? So Ruto can come out and argue and say he'll have his political analysts such as Herman Manyora, who will stop there and say, you see, Nairobi used to be metropolitan, and when we joined Kiambu and Nairobi came together, now these other tribes moved to Kiambu and they're living there. And so the Nairobi and Kiambu voters, they don't think the way the people of Mount Kenya are thinking. They were thinking, what can they do? What can this metropolitan area, how can they? You see what I'm saying? They're going to make it that way. So essentially what I'm saying is this. For those of you who might not get my gist, the gist of what my argument is, if you merge Kiambu with Nairobi, you're basically dissolving the Kikuyu-dominated Kiambu region. I'll say it one more time. Thank you so much. Here we go. Mabri, nice seeing you, brother. So what I'm saying is this again. I'll repeat one more time. If you merge Nairobi and Kiambu County, what you're essentially doing is you are dissolving, breaking up the Kikuyu-dominated Kiambu County, okay? Unai mix na Nairobi, which is a cosmopolitan, there's a homogeneous area, okay? So unapata kuwa matribe zote hizi tribes zingine they swallow up the Kikuyu the Kikuyu county, okay, and it makes it one multi ethnic political voting basket. So Ruto, if he rigs with the help of Raila, okay, because Nairobi is always leaning towards the opposition, like I say, heavy influence by the Kamba, Luo, and lawyer, okay? So, in Nairobi, it will make Nairobi a very rich voting basket. So, Ruto can rig or have his victory there, or not even Ruto, it can be part of the coalition. If Ruto is in a coalition with ODM, okay, they'll win that county. They'll win that county. And in turn, Ruto will win that county, okay? And that will basically be swallowing up part of the Mount Kenya, because Kiambu was considered Mount Kenya, okay? And now that's what they want to do with other counties, you know, which are bordering Mount Kenya. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is this: gerrymandering that is happening by Ruto, this breaking up, dissecting, sectionalizing, if you will, okay? Ni kama Mount Kenya, imagine a pizza, okay? A pizza, right? A circular pizza. Alafu hiyo sasa, imagine Mount Kenya as a circular pizza. Alafu wewe unakuja na ile kisu ya kukata pizza, you dissect it into pieces, maybe 8 or 7 or 20. Then those sections, you put them as a different, cojoin or merge them with other counties. So by merging them with other counties, essentially what you're doing is this: you are scattering the votes, the potency, ile kuvote kwao kwa umoja, because Mount Kenya always vote in unison for the most part. You understand what I'm saying? They always vote in unison. So if you kata into subsections and make them merge with other counties, basically what it does is it's weakening the unified nature of Mount Kenya as a voting bloc. You understand what I'm saying? So that is why Ruto and Raila wants to gerrymander the Mount Kenya. That way they can argue that I did not need the votes of Mount Kenya in 2027 because Mount Kenya votes was already scattered. Kiambu joined up with Nairobi, and I don't know where, Nyeri joined up with Sijui, Laikipia or whatever. You see what I'm saying? That's basically what they're doing. Gerrymandering. That's number one. Number two, the reason, part of Ruto's implementation plan of how he's going to win 2027. Okay? Let me wacha ni kunywa coffee kidogo kabla nitoe reason number two. Reason number two, violence. Okay? Violence. Now, hatimaye Shakahola. Niko Shakahola nafanya tizi. Reason number two, violence. How is the government going to use violence? Sinimulisoma story ya Jabaland. Is it Jubaland? Not Jabaland. Jabaland. Stories of Jabaland. Jubaland. Sinimulisoma stories of Jubaland. You saw that when those RSF guys from is it Somalia? Not RSF. Somalia guys, whatever the case is. Those foreign army militia, whatever the case is, who went and took over school in Kenya, and they are training over there. So Mlisoma hiyo. Mlisoma. What do you think they are there for? I mean, they know that's a breach of Kenya's sovereignty. The normal response from Kenya should be the KDF going and reestablishing the Kenyan boundaries, kicking off those Malaysia back to Somaliland or whatever the case they came from, okay? But listen to me very carefully. These guys, that's why Ruto was meeting that RSF guy and all this Al-Shabaab that Gachagua was telling us. The reason why Ruto has a pact with these people is, number one, is to destabilize some section of some communities. Not only did we see that in Jubaland or whatever the case is, there's reports now that in Molo, Kikuyus are being targeted. There are 17 people who are injured, I think died or were injured. Some shot with the police. There's skirmishes happening. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. Okay? Why do you think they're doing this? Again, just to go by a political scientist, I wish I was using my other gadget so I can play you a clip where he mentioned, he gave an example of 1992. Moi used to use this trick all the time. Leading up to elections, he would start, ulikuwa mnasikia siku za majimbo, huko Mombasa, watu wa bara walikuwa wanapigwa, they were being, hacked to death or shot, wanapigwa na mshale, whatever the case is. Molo, where Gachagua took place in those atrocities, for those of you know who know, if you know, you know, yes, they would use that method to do what? To displace potential voters that would vote to give victory to a certain candidate that they may not like. For example, if you have, let's say if Kericho, let me use just Kericho for example. Kericho is also another place where it usually wraps into into political violence, okay? But this time, since these tribal chieftains are kind of getting along, it's relatively peaceful. But Kericho kind of borders is kind of like where the Rift Valley meets Luo Nyanza or Abagusi, whatever the case. Wakuria wako hapo, Wakisi wako hapo, Waluo wako hapo, Wanandi wako hapo. So during a political season, when we are approaching approaching elections, you'll see that there'll be violence around that area. Kericho hapo, kama unaenda Kericho, kama unaenda Kisumu huko, that area hapo hivyo, Wakuria, Wakisi, Wajaluo, na Wakalenjin, okay? Hapo ndio wanaanza kugombana depending on who or their political candidate is. Of course, now their political candidates are in kind of one blood base, so it's relatively peaceful. But you always see that. So one tribe might try to push another tribe to another place because they want a certain candidate to win the election there, or whatever the case is. So you see this. So this, number two, what I'm trying to say is this: the government-sponsored violence has started. It can be done in several ways. Number one, it can be used by, you see this, it can be implemented through tribal clashes that you see in Molo. You hear a lot of, in fact, if you go to my X on my X page, Kenya Revolutionary, you can see I've posted, I retweeted one, where there's some Kikuyu youth who are complaining about the attacks that they suffered from the police. And I don't know if it's another community or whatever the case is, but they're kind of the people of the Kikuyu people are being targeted, kind of, okay? So it has started. The reason for this is the people who are there may feel like, okay, these guys have a huge number here. They might turn the vote to go to a certain person. So they'll try to push them out, intimidate them by, hizo vita, so warudi kwao. Unaelewa? So that's how they're doing it. Now, with that Malaysia that you saw in Jubaland, whatever the case is, those also might be used, okay, to either push a certain community out of the area so that it can guarantee victory for a certain candidate, okay? So violence is another way of displacing voters in order for Ruto to Ninio. So basically, if you look at the political map, if I was somebody who was concerned about 2027, I would see, if I was looking at the opposition, majority of the opposition this time, if we are to stay like this, if the alignment still is like this, I would say the opposition is predominantly Kikuyus and the Kisi because of Matiang'i and Gachagua. Kamba will wait to see, depending on where Kalonzo ends up. I personally think Kalonzo will end up with Raila Odinga and Ruto at the end of the day. So what I'm saying is this: 2027. That's why you see the likes of Eden Duale is telling us that we'll have a repeat of 2027. 2007. What did we have in 2007? Besides the violence, it was basically all tribes against Kikuyus. Okay? And so that's the general perception that is happening through the general perception of Kenyans of what's going on. We are looking at the opposition as the Kikuyus being the main of the opposition. They are opposing Ruto's Ninio. And Ruto has already started implementing these things through gerrymandering, messing up these boundaries, the voting blocks, counties, in order to neutralize the vote-rich Mount Kenya region. And I scatter so that they end up in other counties where, so that way, after Aki lose in Mount Kenya region, it will be a few counties and the general percentage, because he needs 50 plus 1, it will help him in that way. And then the third one, of course, is what Oscar Sudi told us, atafanya ukarabati at the polling station. So basically the three reasons that Ruto is going to use in not so many words. Number one is gerrymandering, okay? Gerrymandering, redrawing of the boundaries. That's why, in order to do that, I'm not talking about the IBC part of it, because they can't do that with the IBC. IBC is supposed to do that, but they want to go back to 7 because they want to actually change the structure of government. And in order to do that, they have to change the constitution, put it in stone, so they have to have people go for a referendum in order to vote for these 7 counties. And when we go to 7 counties, that means that some of these counties that are part of Mount Kenya region, Central Province region, shall be swallowed or will merge with other counties. That way, it will not give the Mount Kenya that potency, that richness as far as a voting block, okay? You understand? So gerrymandering is number 1. Number 2 is violence sponsored by the government. We see that it has started, like I said, go to my X page on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter X. Go see, I've posted a video. It's happening right now. People are not just speaking on it. NTV hasn't picked up on it. Citizen TV hasn't picked up on it. But we have people posting on Twitter and all this social media is happening. Kikuyus are being targeted, okay? Now, number 3, like I said, it's going to be ukarabati. Ukarabati means the vote shall be, because they know. So using these 3 methods shall guarantee Ruto 2027 electoral victory, okay? Now, again, we shall waste a lot of time and political circus tukienda Supreme Court, trying to show the evidence and all this stuff. But again, the whole judiciary system, the juris pesa system, we already know the results in that. And then tutarudi maandamano. So that's why I keep on arguing a lot of times that, listen, instead of waiting till 2027, why can't we go back to coming together? What's that? All right. Now nani anasema, let me go through the comments real quick. I have like few nini hapa. All right, so Gypsy was saying, what's Gypsy saying here? Gerrymandering in Kenya could be weird. Ruto and Raila have to be stopped. Absolutely. Wana gerrymander kabisa. Laban Misiani, I give it to Ruto's worshippers for now, but next time there will be no mercy. Okay. Laban, what does Laban say? Do you mean that when Tom Mboya was elected MP for Kamkunji, Raila and Gumo brought voters for him, Luo and Luya came in Nairobi long time ago? Okay. No. Yes and no. You're right that Tom Mboya was, but Tom Mboya, listen to me. What I'm trying to say is this, okay? In Nairobi in particular, okay? The reason why Nairobi became, in the Tom Mboya days, okay? There was a level of patriotism. Ukabila was there, but it wasn't that as much pronounced as it is right now, okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is this. Raila Odinga consciously, go listen to, there's a speech he gave when he was apologizing to, what's his name? Tim Wanyonyi. okay? And he gives a background on how he wanted to engineer a strong voting bloc in Nairobi. Now, I'm not going to say that the lawyers and Luos that moved in Nairobi solely falls is because of Raila Odinga. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying this. He plays a part, okay? Since 1992, as he said, you know, he came up with this plan, him along with Fred Gumo. They decided to strengthen, you know, if you listen to his speech, he explained how he wanted the Luos and lawyers to be politically active. It wasn't just a matter of them moving to Nairobi. He didn't say, okay, watu wa Kisumu kujeni Nairobi. You know, of course, people are moving to Nairobi because at that time, you know, everyone that wanted to find a job, you'll have to, ulikuwa unaenda jiji. Nairobi was where the job was, okay? You would finish school, polytechnic or whatever the case is, then, you know, Nairobi is where the industries were, where the big industries were, okay? So if you're a young man, you finish school, ulikuwa unaenda Nairobi kutafuta kazi. And it still happens till this to this day. I mean, it's more or less, but it still happens, okay? So what I'm saying is this: Raila's role in this was he made these two communities to be more politically conscious, okay? Because he had a vision of him running for that 1992 Langata seat from the, I think it was Mzungu at the time, or whatever the case is, okay? But the exodus from Western Province and the Luo Nyanza of Luos to Nairobi started way before that, okay? So that's why I'm saying yes and no, okay? The Luos were there in Nairobi way before Raila Odinga. The lawyers were in Nairobi way before Raila Odinga came to the political scene. I'm just saying he made up, you know, him as an activist, he made this conscious decision. Him and Gumo and others, they wanted to make this Nairobi a politically rich place for the two communities there, wakiran, especially against the KANU folks of the time, wapate nafasi ya kushinda the elections of MP and all this and all that. So that's what I mean, Laban. I hope I'm clear on that. Labani says, we the people of Kenya, our sovereign motherland, not diaspora, who their lives has been made easier by tax of foreign countries. Okay, I didn't understand that, Ninio, but I kind of understand. I don't understand where, I understand what you're saying, but I kind of don't understand where you know, the gist of it. Ruto and his fellow conmen and women has already rigged in advance. Hence, I'm not wasting my vote, but to lock it and throw the keys in River Nile. Ay. Alafu nani anakuja nasema thanks for the mission that Ruto will win 2027. Gypsy here. Labani is saying thanks for the mission. Labani is saying he 2027 imeenda kabisa tu tam. Okay. Mabri namuona hapo. Mabri, what is Mabri saying? Let me see what Mabri amenyamaza sana. All right. My thing is not working. I am back. Jubaland, hakuna data ya SAF. But yeah, so anyway, that's what I'm saying. Basically, that's what I wanted to explain to you guys, to see what Ruto is actually doing. Ruto and Raila. Again, I think this next year, early next year, coming 2026, I think Raila Odinga and Ruto will try to take Kenyans into a not revolution, but inaitwaje? A plebiscite vote. What do you call it? A referendum. Thank you. Referendum. I think that's what their aim is. Early 2026, watupeleke ninio. Other news, I see that wakina nani Sakaja wanataka kutoa Sakaja. I don't know who Sakaja crossed these times, but there are 73 MCAs who have signed that they are going, they want to move a motion to kutoa Sakaja. So we'll wait and see for Sakaja's news. I won't deal with it right now because of time. But anyway, guys, that's my main Nino. I would like to thank Mabri. Mabri, thank you so much for being here. I haven't seen you for a while. It's been a while. Gypsy and Laban kama kawaida. I'll just leave it here, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, and do all the good stuff. Like I say, this is your political dietitian, Kenya Revolutionary. Okay? Munifuate hapo kwa X na kwa mambo ingine na kwa YouTube, of course. Like I say, subscribe, share, like, comment, and put your notification on. That bell, hit it on. So every time I come in, I'll know. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and comrades, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace and blessings. I'm out.